Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of the I'll Try That podcast. In our pursuit of hoppiness, we will be tasting a bit of a beer juggernaut, widely renowned, Stella Artois. Very recognisable, both visually and in terms of the taste, so we'll be getting into that later. You're going to have to call him the Renegade Master, because he is back once again. It's Christopher Simmons, joining us for I believe, an I'll Try That podcast first. And to mark that, it's also, Simo's going to tell us a little bit more about how yesterday was a very important day, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, I there's no way for me to beat that intro, so that's absolutely spiffy. Thank you so much.
Thoroughly deserved, I've got to say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm renegade in so many ways, obviously, but it's
Master was the one I was thinking.
Yeah, but I mean, it's good to be back, but and I think it's very apt that I'm back on the day after what was the International Beer Day, so that's always great.
And you are coming to us live from the other side of the planet. Isn't technology a wonderful thing?
It is indeed. I mean, I'm very glad to get a beer with my boys. That sounds weird. I'm not going to say that's awful. A beer with my boys again. Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah. We're rolling with it. But
so I thought
yeah. Well, you're the only one who was willing to do it with me. That was what it is.
I was going to say that I'd stayed up really late to do this, but actually it's morning where I am and it's late at night where you are.
Yeah, so Barb says having to sacrifice and have a beer really early. But so International Beer Day. So I just thought I'd give like a bit of background about it. So it actually started in the United States in a place called Santa Cruz, California. And it was actually purposely designed to celebrate the craft of brewing. So it was basically to, as it should be, just to be celebrations all over about beer and beer in general. Now, it's actually expanded amazingly. So just interesting facts, 207 cities celebrate it, 50 countries, 6 continents, absolutely incredible, obviously including Australia. And the founder of the beer day had 3 reasons that he declared for starting the day. To gather with friends and enjoy the taste of beer, to celebrate those responsible for brewing and serving beer, and to unite the world under the banner of beer by celebrating beers of all nations together on a single day.
Wow, okay. I like that. There's a lot of very positive messages in there that we probably ought to just maybe even just apply to the human race, I guess. But
yeah.
That all sounds very nice. That also, that sounds like a very Californian outlook, which we maybe need a little bit more of over in the UK. Where does it rank for you though, Simmo? Out of the 3, Christmas, your birthday, and World Beer Day, what's in order? What's more important?
Oh, well, I am a big fan of Christmas. I actually have an outfit that I wear every year, and I have worn it every year for the last 5 years. Which includes
for Beer Day or Christmas,
sadly, and it has green chinos involved.
Ooh,
so yeah, and I pull them off to no one can say I can't.
Sorry, you pull them off. You mean like the outfit works rather than the Christmas Day celebration? You're pulling off your green chinos.
No, yeah, Christmas isn't a weird fair at the Simmons household, but
it's 3:00. It's time for the Queen's speech, and then Chris will take his trousers off.
Oh my God! Yes, I forgot what this podcast has become. Anyway, so I would say, sadly, if I'm being completely honest, until you told me, Barbers, I didn't know it was Beer Day. So I'm going to put my hands up.
If I'm being completely honest, it was a surprise to me. I think it's all right that a little bit harder to keep track of because for anyone who's going to now sort of plan their 2022 diary, it is for the first Friday. It is scheduled for the first Friday of August every year. So that happened to be the 6th this year. But when it comes to next time, first Friday of August. Not quite sure. I mean, maybe that's have significance for the brewers out in California. But not quite. We're still a little bit perplexed.
I've already figured it out.
You've raised your hand.
Think about it. It's celebrating alcohol if you had it on a set day, that set day could be a Monday. That set day could be a Tuesday when you're supposed to go to work.
That does make a lot of sense. Actually.
I'm a genius. I'm just.
Well, you've joined some serious dots there. I suppose the August bit could be fairly flexible, but yes, you make a pretty good point. The rest of the weekend for your Alka-Seltzer day on Saturday.
True.
Probably.
True. Actually, I didn't really consider the month. I was just thinking alcohol is drunk whenever. But it's like, I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, the August month, actually, if you think about it, here in Australia, it's our winter.
Okay, yeah. So actually, if you really want to celebrate it, you should go worldwide. And then, depending on the climate you're in, have an appropriate beer each year when you go around.
But then I was thinking about this. The winter here isn't really winter. So, as I know it, you still would be drinking a cold beer in Australia regardless. I mean... I just think it's such a good day. Like, I think the fact that it focuses on the people who, not only the people who make beer and the people who are connoisseurs, but it's also the people who serve it. And I love the fact it's like they're celebrating the people who actually pour you your beer, you know, because I was just saying, like, it's something that you don't really think about, or you don't really thank them. It sounds bad, but it's like, give me a beer. Please, but then you kind of get the beer and you say thanks and you walk off and you forget them all over again. So.
But it's also quite nice because what I see about these, particularly in these major cities where they're celebrating International Beer Day, is there's also plenty going on. You know, there's a lot of sort of miniature festivals going on, and it's quite a draw and an attraction for even people who aren't necessarily the biggest fans of beer. So it's
it's just really cool. I really like the idea of it. I mean, why wouldn't you have? I mean, there's a day for everything, so there should definitely be a day for beer. And I know, obviously, during these times, it's not always easy to get out and do stuff, especially actually now. Australia at this point in time is actually in a lockdown. But if you can go and enjoy International Beer Day, go out and enjoy it. And if you have to enjoy it at home, you can definitely do that because it's International Beer Day. Right. In today's pursuit of hoppiness, haven't said that in a while, we are looking at and tasting, hopefully, the Stella Artois. And it is steeped in history. So it's actually Belgian, for those that don't know, even though the adverts kind of link itself to France a little bit. And it traces its origins to over 600 years ago to a brewery called the Den Hoorn now I'm going to probably say this got it wrong, Leuven, Belgium, in 1366.
Oh, it could be Leuven, couldn't it? It could be Leuven.
It could be Leuven as well. And I do apologise for butchering that.
We've covered all bases. We'll edit out the wrong ones later on.
Yeah. And it was actually, Stella Artois was born as a holiday gift to the people of Leuven from the brewery. So the brewery, which is the Den Hoorn Brewery, actually, its founding of Stella Artois was actually as a holiday gift to the people.
Yeah, that's quite fascinating. I thought I'd read somewhere that actually it was contrary to my prior belief, but I thought I'd heard somewhere that it was a Christmas drink. So imagine when it says holiday gift, it's at Christmas time presumably. Yes. But I think it then must have got the tradition of being a beer that you drank at Christmas, but from, as you say, this origin of a gift from the brewery to the locals.
I love it. Yeah, and just to go even further, because to increase the detail on this show. The name Stella actually means star in Latin and pays homage, and a star has been proudly displayed on the bottle ever since. So if you ever get a chance to have a gander, there is a star at the top.
It's funny how those things sort of, they were in front of you this whole time.
Yeah.
I mean, Stella, no prizes for spotting that really, because we have like phrases like interstellar.
Yeah.
Star.
Yeah, and
there's a big star on the can. Yeah,
exactly. And Artois is a tribute to the brewmaster who is called Sébastien Artois. So it's Star Artois. So it links directly to the brewmaster who was Sébastien Artois and the meaning of star. So absolutely amazing. So just to let you know, the brewmaster Sébastien Artois is like a beloved member of the De Hoorn Brewery. And the community, so it's a really, really big deal. So that's why, if you look at the bottle, I think it looks a bit like a North Star. I might be wrong.
Yeah, because there's kind of like an elongated point on each one, and that's so. I mean, that kind of probably suggests it's the one that should really stand out. So there might be something in that.
Guides you towards the beer.
Come over here. I am curious, actually. I meant to check out the horn. I want to know about the horn as well.
Yes. I mean, that might. I just think that the bottle itself looks very sophisticated and very kind of.
Yeah, sophistication is an interesting word to bring out, particularly because actually just recently we did the. I think sophistication is a little bit of the self-image that Stella Artois, particularly these days, like to portray, because we did mention on when we talked about Newcastle Brown Ale the other week, there was a bit of jibing between Stella and from Newcastle Brown Ale towards Stella, because they had put out an advert particularly around the glass, so it's the point of that advert they put out previously was it's not a glass, it's a chalice or chalice. So I think that there's, particularly in more recent times, there's been a bit of a lean towards it is actually quite a sophisticated drink.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're drinking a Stella, we have to talk about, before we get into why it is linked to sophistication, because I think we have got a lot of information about that. We do have to talk about the kind of negative connotations that the UK especially had with this beer. And I think it probably, for instance, link Stella with almost hooliganism. I can't even say that word. How do you say that word?
Hooliganism.
That's the one. And I think at one point it was very linked to binge drinking in the UK, and
yeah, and it had a very nasty nickname.
Yes.
At one point, didn't it?
Yes. So it had the nickname of the wife beverage, which is an awful name, and it's connotation of domestic violence, and it's really horrible. And in the UK, it was linked to that because when you went to the supermarket, even though it is a very high class beer in terms of the way it's advertised, the way I think the bottles look, it was super cheap.
You mentioned at the start, steeped in history. It's got a lot of heritage.
Yeah,
isn't
exactly. It's 600 years old. So, I mean, it claims to be that old. And also, it's very cheap, and it was, at the time, 5.2%.
So that was potentially how it got its image and reputation before was the cost you could get it for, and that it packed a punch in terms of the actual alcohol.
Yes. Yeah, and interestingly, it is now owned by AB InBev, of course, because most things are. They actually...
Yeah, who else?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk actually about the ownership and how it changed hands in a second. But they actually, AB InBev, when they took control, have actually changed the percentages down. So the original UK strength of Stella was 5.2 and 4.8%, and now they've dropped it further to 4.6 in the UK. So, Barber, you could check on your beer.
That's a good point. Yeah, because I do have one of the pint-sized cans. Pint-sized, literally speaking, it's one to contain an actual pint. Yeah, it's 4.6%. So yeah, absolutely, as you say.
And interestingly, Barber,
I'm glad that checked out.
And interestingly, Barber, on my beer in Australia, it's 4.8 still. So there you go.
Oh, okay. So it's slightly higher there.
Yeah. So only in the UK they've changed it.
Right, with you. Okay.
So to 4.6. So that's quite an interesting kind of. They've obviously that has impacted the company massively, and they really want to take away from that negative attitude, which I completely understand. But their history of ownership, Barb, do you want to let us know?
So, I mean, yeah, in terms of their history, sort of being, they've been around for 600 years. Most of the, big changes have been in the last 40 years or so. So, there was a merger in 1988 where Brewery Artois were one of the founding members of Interbrew. 2004, they then become InBev. And so that's when really we saw the everything's really ramped up in terms of production. At that point, there was 1 billion litres of Stella Artois being produced annually, and then for anyone who's already familiar with the with this sort of timeline, 2008, InBev and Anheuser-Busch InBev, AB InBev, came into the guise as we know it today. So funny. That's I suppose probably typical about the way a lot of these breweries became sort of more globalized in the last 30, 40 years or so.
Well, I mean, it's kind of these are one of the founding members of AB InBev, so they're a powerhouse really, and it doesn't surprise me at all because it's a lager, and lagers sell really well internationally, and you can name a lot of them. But I found an interesting thing on the. I'm going to say thing. Why am I saying thing? I found an interesting fact on their website. Yeah, an interesting item. A
nugget.
Tidbit.
A
tidbit. That's it. Tidbit. That's so much better. Right. I found
Actually,
a tidbit.
I also like factoid.
Oh, all right.
If it's not necessarily a fact, but it's kind of like a fact, you can call it a factoid.
Is this slang?
Yeah, only from watching too much QI.
But no, it's factoid.
I feel like anything you learn off QI doesn't count as slang.
No. I've got to see if it's factoid. I just want to see if factoid is in the dictionary.
If I get it from watching too much,
it's a dictionary word. So
it is okay.
An item of unreliable information that is repeated so often it becomes accepted as fact.
So I have a funny feeling that the I'll Try That podcast might be the world's biggest peddler of factoids.
How dare you?
Please note, any facts provided by the I'll Try That podcast are unchecked, and if they were checked, they'd be checked by unreliable sources. Terms and conditions apply.
Yes, when we say fact, we actually mean we're shorthanding it from factoid. So yeah, but anyway, to my
hit us with the factoid.
Yeah, it said on their website, we plan to transition all packs and drafts to the US for Stella to be brewed in the US only from 2021.
So there's some news.
So yeah, and this is supposedly happening. It's already happened. Now but they've they've kind of tried to stipulate, because I think this is obviously could go down like a sack of potatoes, right? But they have stipulated that it is going to be under the strict supervision of brewmasters from Leuven, Belgium.
Okay, yeah. So it is actually going back to there's a little element of sticking to the roots.
Well, I think you have to, because I think people who are from Belgium, especially, I think you'd be quite upset if you heard that they're brewing it mass in the US. But as long as in the US they
completely of their own, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I might be reading this wrong, and it might be the fact that they're still going to do it in Belgium, but they are now mass brewing in the US. But what they're saying is in the US, by the way, you're not buying a second-hand kind of knockoff. You're buying the legit quality of Stella Artois, which I hope is the right answer. That's just my thoughts on it. But I think we should probably talk about the beer and the taste of it.
That's quite a relevant point.
Yeah, so I mean, I've had the bottle. They're only 330s. Are they 330s?
It looks about that size.
Do you know why? Why can't I just see that it says 330? Why am I being so...
Do you know what? It took a bit of finding on the can, actually, because I was looking for confirmation that it was 568ml, so a full pint. But actually, I think that's also not much of a... I think that's a bit of a rarity to have a genuine full pint in a can. But I suppose... I don't know if that's something... I don't know how long they've been doing that for, but that, to me, speaks of what we actually talked about with International Beer Day. People, actually, if they want to, can have... It gets you your simulation of being in the pub. If you can't get to the pub, you can have a pint at home, again, for our UK dwellers, mainly.
Exactly. So I've got the 330. You've got the can experience. Now, I'm always skeptical of cans, even though I probably shouldn't be, because there's craft brewers do it for ages. But I love a bottle. But what are your thoughts on the beverage, Barber?
It's. I feel like there's not much of a revelation coming from me here, but it's kind of a bit of an old reliable. Bit of you're always told that beer can't actually quench your thirst, but a bit of a thirst quencher. That sort of crisp, quite clean. After a hard day's work, can of lager that just kind of hits the spot. Probably not going to blow you away with anything. Oh crikey, what's this? And it's not exactly thought provoking, but goes down smooth. I suppose is a short way to describe it.
I mean, I really like the kind of... I actually think it's quite a full flavour. I actually do, like, as a lager goes, there's quite a lot to it when you first have that first gulp, and it is very refreshing. And I think it has got a little bit of a bite to it, but it is what you would expect of a macro brewery lager. It's kind of, I'm not going to go, this is the best thing I've ever did, because I think it does taste a lot, it's similar to other beers, but I would say that it makes me quite gassy, and I've only had a 330. And so that's something that I've never really enjoyed. I've always felt if you have a lot of lagers, you feel really like bloated, but maybe that's these macro breweries. But
yeah. I mean, it's. I suppose ultimately, I to be honest, this is not something I've fact checked, but I assume that it's one of those pasteurized lagers that, as you say, I think that's a good way to describe it, like a macro brewed thing, where I think for a lot of the ale drinkers out there, it's one of those ones which is I always reference what my old man would say. It's not proper beer, but it's a drinking lager or something like that. Particularly now more so that they've dropped down the ABV, makes it more in the line of something that's a bit more sessionable.
Yes, definitely.
And also so do you remember? I've got weird memories of. I'm sure there were loads of. Trying to remember. I'm sure there used to be loads of adverts on TV. I can't really remember, but I kind of feel like they were driving at the point you were talking about earlier on about a bit of an era of sophistication. There was one maybe around sort of World War II era. Possibly also adds to the misconception that I've seen a few times about. I think a few people do mistake them as a French brewing company instead of a Belgian one. But does that tally with you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think they've got like massive links with like films, and they're very kind of like that's kind of sophisticated French film kind of idea. They use French language in the show. Which actually interests me because the city of Leuven is Dutch speaking, right? So, I think you've mentioned this before, that they don't say cider with their cider beverage. They actually say the French cidre, and then they also do like almost film-esque adverts. Like, do you remember? I think I'm getting the right bit. Where it's a guy and he's in like a bow tie and he goes up to the bar and then he like wisps off the top.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, with the almost like a spatula to take the head off.
Yeah.
Which every time anyone in my experience has mentioned that since, everyone says, no, you don't do that.
Oh, okay. It looked cool.
But to be honest, yeah, it did look cool. It was quite an eye-catching image, wasn't it? Mind you, my that could be factoid from me. Those are uncertified sources I'm talking about. Indeed, I think you're right, and I'm sure one of their adverts was even billed previously as the King of Cannes, Cannes as in France rather than actually the drinking vessel, because there was that sort of movie world that they were trying to get into. So,
and the whole the Cannes Film Festival.
Yeah, exactly. So they're obviously now they're in InBev, having a bit of a sterner look at the sort of marketing side of things. But just looking at their numbers, Twitter UK for Stella Artois is at 22.9 thousand followers. Instagram, bigger presence there, 213,000. So when we say recognisable, I mean we really do mean it. But a bit of a stalwart. We've seen it around for a while, and can't see that changing anytime soon, can we?
No, and I think it's one of those that if somebody offered you it, you're not gonna say no. I think it's a solid, decent, as you said, stalwart. I'm just repeating you and taking your stuff, so
I'll take it as a compliment.
Yeah, awesome. Right.
That's good.
See everybody next time. I don't know what that's.
Thanks, guys.
That's the myself.
Getting the bloopers.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Catch you on another one.
And that's all we have time for this week's episode of the I'll Try That podcast. And so from me, Joe, Rich,
Barber,
and Simmo,
goodbye. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter,
I'll try that podcast.com,
and watch us on YouTube.
Goodbye now.